are picking up where we left off yesterday on factoring. So, lesson 4.4. On the front, we looked at our basic product and sum factoring. We practiced being able to find those numbers that give us the correct product and sum. So putting them into two parentheses. The ones we looked at yesterday only had 1x squared out front though, right? Then we also practiced GCF. And every problem you go to, ideally the best bet is to say, is there GCF? Always make that your first question. Okay, I'll be honest, I sometimes forget to ask you guys that, but that should always be your first question. So we have a couple other methods we're going to kind of put together here in your review of factoring, and then hopefully we'll have an idea of what we're doing. So as I look at A, 2x squared plus 11x plus 12. My first question I want you asking yourself is there a GCF?
No.
Okay, so yeah, 2, 11, and 12 do not have a GCF. Not all terms have an x. So, with that in mind, can I do what I was doing yesterday and just set up two parentheses, x and x in the front of each parenthesis? What's different about this one? Different is that there is a number in front of the x squared. Okay? When you have that a value, okay, so notice the ones we're talking about today are ax squared plus bx plus c. So when you have that a value, you cannot just jump to two parentheses. We lose that ability. I call this product of AC when we factor this. We're using the AC method. Sounds like those of you that have Mrs. Rogers, maybe you did factoring a lot. You called this was part of your X method thing, and it sounds like it's going to relate. Okay? So, bear with me. I'll go through it my way. We'll see how we can meet in the middle here. But the first thing I ask you to find is the product for AC. So what is A? 2. What is C? 12. So what is 2 times 12? 24. So that one means when I go to look for my numbers that might work, I'm not going to be looking for a product of 12 like I would have yesterday. I'm going to be looking for a product of 24. I'm still going to need a sum of the B term. What is my B value? 11. So I'm looking for my numbers that multiply to be 24 and add to be 11. You guys got it? If you don't have it, list your pairs for 24, right? I would say 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. And notice I just went up 1, 2, 3, 4. I listed all my pairs. Which pair adds to be 11? 3 and 8. And since it multiplies to be positive and adds to be positive, 3 and 8 are going to be positive, yes? Okay. Again, you cannot just put these in parentheses. So what I teach is that we're going to use the 3 and the 8 to split the middle term. So 11x can be split into 3x plus 8x. Or, if you prefer, 8x plus 3x. Does it matter? Officially, it does not matter. Might be a little more enjoyable if we do 8x plus 3x on this one, as I look ahead to my next step, although it doesn't matter. So it's a positive 8x and a positive 3x, yes? My other two terms, so 11x I split. My first term I will carry down into 2x squared. My last term, the plus 12, I will carry down. I have 4 terms. I'm going to break this in half. So if I break this in half here, look only at your first two terms. So ignore 3x plus 12 for a moment. 2x squared plus 8x. Is there a GCF there?
2x.
So 2 and 8 can both divide by 2, and they both have an x in common. So I'm going to divide both of these terms by 2x. Now, I'm writing that division step there. Some of you may not want the division step shown on your paper. That's fine. So GCF means the 2x is going to go out front. In the parenthesis is what remains. So what is 2x squared divided by 2x? X. 2 divided by 2 is 1. X squared divided by x leaves me with x. Plus. What's 8x divided by 2x? 8 divided by 2 is 4. X is canceled. Now, repeat the process on the other side. So this time, forget the first half. What do 3x and 12 have in common?
3.
A 3. So that means I'm going to divide both pieces by 3. Also means my GCF is a 3. It's a plus 3, so I'm going to write plus 3. And then in parentheses, what remains when I divide by 3? 3x divided by 3 is x, plus 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, home stretch. How do I know that I've been successful in what I've done so far? My parentheses are the same, yes? If you've done this correctly, what's in your parentheses are the same. If they don't match up, you've got a mistake. You've got to go back and look for a mistake. Since they match up, you give your answer in two parentheses. One of those parentheses is the matching parentheses of x plus 4. What's my other parenthesis? Your GCF's right here of 2x plus 3. How could I check myself if I felt the desire? Boil it back together, distribute it. Okay. Questions on what I did there? Does that sound familiar, or is that similar to what you've learned? Yeah, Garrett?
Can you go over again how you got from the last step, how you got from that, that to that.
Okay. So my answer is going to be in two parentheses. My x plus 4s are matching. They're in common, right? So that is one of my parentheses. My other parentheses are whatever my GCFs were. My GCFs were the 2x and the plus 3. So 2x plus 3. Huh? If all else fails, the question is, what if you didn't have a GCF? If all else fails, there's always a GCF of 1. Okay, you can't write no GCF here. You have to put something. So if all else fails, all numbers always have a common factor of 1. I wrote mine as x plus 4 and then 2x plus 3. Are you asking, could you have written 2x plus 3 and then x plus 4? You would be just fine. Yep. I never care about order of which parentheses you put first. And Math Excel won't either. So, other questions? So is that similar to how you guys have done this in the past?
No.
I mean, it goes along with pieces, maybe. No? Okay. I'm getting mixed reactions. I'm hearing some yeses and some nos. But then again, half of you probably had Mrs. Brott, half of you probably had Mrs. Rogers. So that makes a difference too. And some of you may just not even remember what you did. So it's just new because you don't remember it. Okay. Okay. Shall we try B then? Let's try B. Same method. First of all, is there a GCF? No. Okay. Nothing other than 1, and I don't need that right now. So, no GCF. Notice, what do I have in front of x squared? I have a number, yes? So that means I have to use product of AC. That means I have to use my big long method here. Okay. So product of AC. What you got for me? What are A and C? 4 times negative 3. And 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. So I'm going to be looking for a product of negative 12 and a sum of my B value, which is negative 4. What do you know about signs if it multiplies to be a negative 12? Yeah. We're going to have to be talking about a positive and a negative if it works out to be a negative 12. Have you guys come up with the pair? If you don't know the pair, list your 12s. So 12 is 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4, and that's it. Which pair could possibly give me 4 if we do this right? 2 and 6. Remember, it multiplies to be a negative, so we said one has to be a positive, one has to be a negative. How does that work to get me negative 4? Because it adds to be a negative, my larger number is negative. So positive 2, negative 6. Do you remember what I do with those two numbers? Use those two numbers to split the middle term. Now, you have an option. So I'm splitting negative 4x. I can either split it into a plus 2x and a minus 6x, or minus 6x plus 2x. I try to look ahead into factoring if I can, or I just write them down. It honestly doesn't matter. You guys are probably going to like it better if I do 2 and then 6. However, if we do 6 and 2, that's fine as well. Okay. So if I do 2 and 6, it's a plus 2x and a minus 6x. Split my middle term. Now what? Carry down your first and last term. So I'm going to carry down 4x squared out front. I'm going to carry down minus 3 out back. Now what? Split it in half. And then just look at that one side, right? So, not that you have to cover it up, but I'm trying to make the point here, right? I don't care about the rest of that. 4x squared and 2x. GCF. They both divide by 2, and they both divide by x. Your first GCF will always include an x, guys. Always. Plan on it. If it doesn't, you've made a mistake. And so, I'm going to divide by 2x. So I'm going to put GCF out front of 2x. What goes in my parentheses? 4x squared divided by 2x is 4 divided by 2 is 2. X squared divided by x is 2x. Plus, what's 2x divided by 2x? 1. You have to write that 1, guys. Something divided by itself is plus 1. Repeat the process. So, what do you know about negative 6x and minus 3? They both divide by 3. What kind of 3 should I say here? Negative. Now, here's my hint I will give you. Anytime this first term is negative, use negative. Because our goal is to have matching parentheses in the end. So I'm going to divide by negative 3. That means I'm going to write a minus 3 down here. Negative 6x divided by negative 3. 2x. Minus 3 divided by minus 3. Plus 1. What do you think? Success?
Yes.
Yeah, my 2x plus 1's match, right? That's my idea of success. So, final answer is still 2 parentheses. Okay, so 1 parenthesis is my matching 2x plus 1's. The other parenthesis, your GCFs of 2x minus 3. I'm debating time-wise. I want to make sure I don't get lost on time or anything. Are you starting to feel that process okay?
Yeah, I think we got it on.
Okay. I want to skip down C and D, follow the exact process I just went through. Okay? I want to jump down to E, because E and F have a little difference, and then A and B down there obviously are different as well. I don't want to run out of time. We could possibly come back to C and D if we want. We'll see. I can tell you, if you're someone that's trying them or whatever, C is 4x plus 3 and x plus 1. D is 2x minus 3 and x minus 2. So if you want something to practice with where you know the answer, those are some where you can practice and you know the answer. I want to hop down to E. Okay. What's my first question on E? Okay. Always start off with, is there a GCF? Is there a GCF between 4, 24, and 36? Yeah, there is. So before you start into any other process, GCF that 4 out of there. So divide each of these by 4. That means I'm going to put my 4 out front and write the rest of it in parentheses. So what do I get in my parentheses after I divide everything by 4? 4x squared divided by 4 is x squared minus 24x divided by 4 minus 6x plus 36 divided by 4 plus 9. Do I get to stop just because I factored out a GCF? No. You need to continue, okay? And you need to continue processes here. We could look at the process we just did, product of AC. But let me point out something. What do you notice right here about x squared? Is there a number in front of x squared now?
No.
I mean, the 4 is there, I know. But that 4 is a GCF, right? Is there anything right there with the x squared?
No.
No. Do I have to use my product of AC then?
No.
No, we can go back to yesterday's methods. Does that make sense? Okay. You can use product of AC, that's fine. But keep in mind, these aren't all going to be just magically, okay, here's this type. Now here's this type. Now here's this type. What I'm meaning here. First of all, that 4 out front, what am I doing with that 4 out front? Carry it down. If you are someone flipping to the front side of your notes right now, focus on the top 4 from your notes yesterday, because that's what I'm referring to. This is x squared plus bx plus c. X squared breaks into x and x at the front of each parenthesis, yes? How do I determine numbers? Look at my current pieces I'm working with. We need a what? Product of 9, sum of negative 6. What multiplies to be 9 that can then add to be 6? 3 and 3? Yep, that's where I was going next. If it multiplies to be positive, both positives or both negatives. If it adds to be negative, both negatives. So what goes in my parentheses? Minus 3, minus 3. Does that make sense? Now, I can live if you write your answer like this, and this is what you circle. I cannot be guaranteed Math Excel will accept this right here. I don't remember. How else can I rewrite this answer? What do you notice about these two parentheses? They're the same, so I can write them with a squared. So I can write this as 4 parentheses x minus 3 squared. Okay? I will accept the line before. I can't guarantee anything on Math Excel. I never speak for Math Excel because, you know. Now, what we just did, and what you guys didn't necessarily realize, is this was actually a perfect square trinomial. And I say it's a perfect square trinomial because it factored into 2 matching parentheses. How I know it's a perfect square trinomial is because whether I look at 4x squared or x squared, I could have taken the square root. Whether I look at 36 or 9, I can take the square root. Notice the square root of x squared is x. The square root of 9 is 3. On this next one, I want to show you a technique that you can use if something is a perfect square trinomial. Now, what I will say, is everyone going to catch that it's a perfect square trinomial and use this technique? No. Will product of AC still work? Yes. And honestly, that's what a lot of you will probably end up doing. Is you'll probably still end up doing product of AC, and I'm fine with that. But if you catch it's a perfect square trinomial, it can sometimes save you a little bit of work. What do you guys notice about 64x squared? 64 is a perfect square. Do you guys know what I mean when I say perfect square? A number I can take the square root of, right? So 64, what is the square root of 64x squared? 8x, yes? So what I want you thinking here is that 64x squared is 8x 20 squared, right? Because the square root is 8x. So if the A term is a perfect square, and the C term is a perfect square, can you guys take the square root of 1?
It just stays the same.
Yes, but we can take the square root then, yes? Square root of 1 is 1. So square root of 1 is the same as writing 1 squared. Now, with perfect square trinomials, the middle term is not about being a perfect square. The middle term has to be 2 times these square roots. So if this is a perfect square trinomial, minus 16x is going, or the 16x is going to be 2 times this 8x and this 1. Well, what is 2 times 8x times 1? 2 times 8x is 16x times 1 is 16x, yes? So what I've done here is I've checked this is a perfect square trinomial. What it means that this factors into 8x is the beginning of the parenthesis, 1 is the end of the parenthesis. What sign do we have here in the middle? A minus. So I'll go the 2 parenthesis route for a moment if you want. 64x squared is going to break into its square root of 8x times 8x. 1 is going to break into its square root of 1 and 1. My middle sign is negative, so these signs are negatives. Or in other words, I can write the answer 8x minus 1 quantity squared. I'll let you write that, and then I'll make sure that we see that. Yes?
All right, if we didn't even use 16, why did we draw down the dots and put it to it?
Okay, so the 16, you don't really use it. You just have to check it. Because had this middle number been, say, 14x, then this does not actually factor like this. Okay, so that was me saying, okay, you need to do, whether you write it down or not, a check that that middle term is equal to 2 times the square roots of the other. Okay? And again, some of you guys won't like this. You hate what I just did, and you're like, forget it, I would have just used product of AC. I'd already used product of AC, and that's fine. But I'm trying to give you guys an option that if you see, oh, take the square root, put the middle sign of negative in there, as long as my middle term matches up. Okay? Questions on that? Okay, we need to talk about example 4. Example 4 happens quite a bit. And if you don't know how to do example 4, you're going to be at a loss because we use this quite a bit going forward, okay? We're reviewing factoring, but then we need it in the next lesson. We need it in future chapters. So we have to know these factoring skills. This one is difference of squares. First question. What's my first question I want you guys to ask today, as always? Always stop and ask yourself, is there any GCF? 25, 49, anything in common? No. And what's different about these? Okay, they're perfect squares, and do I have a middle term? No, okay? So this is the idea of it's a perfect square minus a perfect square. So like the last one, think square roots. What's the square root of 25x squared? 5x? What's the square root of 49? Okay. That's all you need to know to do this. It factors into 2 parentheses like everything else we're doing. The square root of 25x squared is 5x. So what goes in the front of each parenthesis? 5x. The square root of 49 is 7. So what goes in the end of each parenthesis? 7. Okay, guys. Do you remember the signs? Here's your check. How do you multiply to get a negative 49? You need a positive and a negative. And by having a positive and a negative, what happens to your middle terms? If you think about your outsides and your insides that are supposed to create that middle x term, what happens? You'd have a minus 35x and a positive 30x that are going to cancel out. So that's how I know my signs have to be opposite, because it allows my middle term to cancel and it multiplies to be negative 49. I cannot stress enough, guys. We'll do lots of factoring like this throughout the year. You have to know how to factor that, okay? Difference of squares. Does that make me a piece of cake or not? First of all, first question, is there any GCF? No. 16 is a bunch of 2s, 81 is a bunch of 3s, so nothing in common. Okay. Are these perfect squares?
Yes.
Can you do the square root of 16x squared? Square root of 16x squared is 4x. Can you do the square root of 81? It's 9. Do you know how to set this up then? Like almost everything else, we're setting up 2 parentheses. What's at the beginning of each parenthesis? 4x. What's at the end of each parenthesis? 9. What are my signs in the middle? Plus and minus. Or if you prefer, minus then plus. I don't care. Okay, guys. That is your big factoring review. Again, you've got to know how to factor, guys. That is an Algebra 1 skill that we're going to keep using. So, your homework is in Math Excel, Lesson 4.4. It should be there. Some of you may have already started it. It will be due tomorrow. Can you guys use 10 minutes of work time if I give it to you?
Yes.
I mean, unless you guys want me to go back and look at C and D.
I'm good.
Use the work time then, guys.
Yeah,